Here's a mistake I see a lot of beginners do. A lot of beginners don't really think about the intention of their trades. I believe there's 3 different kinds of trades, and you need to be sure what kind of trade you actually engage in before even opening it. The first kind of trade, I believe, is information advantage regarding an event that happens very soon in the future. So for example, you might know that a certain token gets listed on a centralized exchange, and because of that knowledge you might buy today, wait for the listing, wait for the price to go up and then sell. Alternatively, you might know, or at least have a strong guess, that an influencer might promote a cryptocurrency very soon in a future video. And so you buy before that video, you wait for the video to be released, to then afterwards sell. Right? Those kind of trades, on the one hand, are very short term, but on the other hand are also very clean alpha, because you have some information advantage, you monetize that information advantage. Now there is a gray zone here, right? Because you cannot use insider information, that's illegal. But you can be still very well informed, as in you can try to gather more information than the average market participant and then monetize that. As an example, right? When you want to buy before an influencer promotes something, maybe you can do some research, try to find out the wallet that influencer holds, track that wallet's transaction, and then see, okay, that influencer's wallet has bought token ABC. He's never talked about ABC before. I will buy as well the speculation that the influencer will promote this on his channel. So that's something we do, for example, on the premium Telegram here, right? On the premium membership. So that's trade number 1. It's simply buying because you anticipate an event happening very soon in the future. Trade number 2 is momentum trading. Now those are trades that are normally open potentially for several weeks, maybe even several months, and you're playing some kind of macro shift. So for example, what you can look at is, what's the current market dominance of a certain altcoin? Is it very low? Is it very high? Is it still an altcoin that's relatively well researched, relatively well established? Maybe you want to buy when it's relatively low, right, compared to the rest of crypto. Or you could look at, say, the stablecoin market caps. You can say, okay, if there's money flowing into crypto, right, we're currently in an expansion of crypto, maybe I want to get more delta exposure and I will get out once that expansion stops. So you're trying to ride the waves, somewhat medium-term waves, but you still have a very clear mission when to sell. So you buy beforehand, you're waiting for this wave to start and to finish, and then you sell afterwards. So both of those trades, right, trade number 1 and trade number 2, are investments, are trades with the intention to sell afterwards for profit. Now for trade number 3, that's not necessarily the case. So when you look at the third type of trades, you don't necessarily have an exit plan. So for that, you're buying simply just to avoid the inflation of fiat currencies. So you don't want to hold your capital for a long time in fiat, right? Because the monetary base expands by roughly 6 to 7% per year just in the US dollar, right? For other currencies, it might be even more. So you want to be outside of the fiat system. So you want to buy something that's more stable. And for that, you could buy, for example, stocks. You could try to buy some bonds, right, when they're very low, long-term duration bonds, when interest rates are high. You could buy all kinds of things. You could buy collectibles. You could buy Bitcoin. But you're buying this simply in a diversified manner in a portfolio to escape the inflation. You're not necessarily buying this in order to generate alpha out of this, in order to outperform the market. So you don't necessarily have a market edge in those trades. You're simply just diversifying. You get whatever everybody else is getting. And only once you require the capital, then you might change it back into fiat and spend it somewhere. It's very, very important before opening any trade that you exactly know what you want to do. Because you don't want a short-term trade where you believed you had a market edge, where you believed a coin listing comes. You don't want such a trade to suddenly turn into a long-term hold. Because the criteria for those two trades are very, very different. If I believe, say, an influencer will publish a video about a certain meme coin, right? When I think he will talk about this, and I think this meme coin is very small, and I think the audience of this influencer is large enough, and I think that once he makes a video, that the price might go up by 100%. Right? If that's my trade thesis, I go with trade type number 1. And I then notice that the influencer actually does not do the trade. Then the beginner mistake here is to keep holding. Let's say the price, while you were hoping for this video to get published, while you hold, the price went down by 10%. And then you keep holding just to hope that you can get back your entrance price again. That's a mistake. You shouldn't change the type of trade that you do. The long-term holds are very different, right? The long-term holds are assets that you believe in for the next 5, 10, 15 years, where you believe that those kinds of assets will stay around, where you believe those will beat inflation. The short-term trades can be stupid meme coins that you'd never touch for the long term. But then, out of emotions, out of loss aversion, you turn a short-term trade into a long-term trade. That's a massive issue. That's a massive mistake, because then you end up holding the bag of a useless meme coin. The same is true for the momentum trading, right? When you trade based on the idea that you want to ride an altcoin wave because the stablecoin market cap is expanding, or you want to ride the Bitcoin wave because you see the long-term holders aren't selling and thus supply is shrinking relative to the constant demand. If that's your general thesis, then you have to sell when those things change, right? You have to sell when the long-term holders start selling. You have to sell when the stablecoin market cap isn't expanding anymore. If you then turn that kind of momentum trade into a long-term trade, then you're riding the wave down. Then you're riding the momentum down as well. And for crypto, that's especially problematic, right? Crypto, let's say even Bitcoin, the safest of the cryptocurrencies, can go down by 70, 80% from top to bottom, right, in a bear market. At least the last bear market was at around 75%, I believe. The one prior to that was, I believe, 83%. So if you don't just dollar cost average into Bitcoin, right, if you don't just diversify your stock portfolio with it, if you don't just want to park your money there for 20 years, but you actually want to ride those momentum waves, then you have to sell when things change, even though that's psychologically incredibly hard. Because imagine you do that, right? Imagine you ride those waves and you dollar cost average in a bear market and maybe in an accumulation phase, maybe for 2 years, you dollar cost average in, you buy $1,000 every month, you're at 24K after 2 years. Now Bitcoin does a 5x. Now you're at 125K roughly. When you sell, right, when the situation changes, when you see that crypto isn't expanding anymore, that the long-term holders, others are selling, when you sell, you have to do this much more aggressively than when you buy. You buy in only for $1,000, but the time window when you sell is much shorter. The time window when you can sell is maybe just 1, 2, maybe 3 months, right? That's only how long the prices will be at the elevated level. So the amounts that you have to sell are way larger. If you only buy for $1,000, but you now end up at the peak of the bull run with 125K, you now have to do a sell transaction of maybe 50K, 60K. So your selling has to have way more conviction than your buying. And that's especially hard because you have to be a contrarian as well. Most people at the peak of the bull market, they will say, let's keep holding, right? Let's keep riding this wave. Bitcoin will hit another 2 or 3x. And that's why there is a bull market in the first place. There is a bull market because there are enough people that believe in further rising prices. But when your metrics that historically worked well turn red, then you have to be the pioneer in selling. You have to be the person that's contrarian. So never, ever move away from your initial thesis of a trade. Think about why you are opening the trade and act accordingly. If you buy because of a short-term information edge, then sell in case that information edge doesn't materialize. Or sell once it did materialize, right? Don't just continue holding. If you ride the momentum waves, then make sure that you really exit once momentum turns around. Make sure that you have predefined a model that you will follow. And when you're investing for the long term, then don't try to short-term speculate and get in and out of the market, right? So decide beforehand what you want to do. Decide beforehand why you're allocating this capital to that particular position and think about what you're actually going to do if prices shoot up, if prices go down. For the last part, right, for the long-term accumulators, for example, if you just buy into Bitcoin, you don't even try to ride the waves, you diversify this with your stock and maybe a property portfolio. When you do that, then when it falls, obviously you buy more. But on the other hand, for the person that rides the waves, when it falls, you might want to check, did maybe something change in my momentum models? Maybe then you should exit. And you can do different kinds of trades with the same asset, as for example here for Bitcoin, right? I do a mix of both. So I have one wallet for Bitcoin where I just dollar cost average in, where I'm just holding this for the next 20 years, and I am okay to ride that money through the bear market. So that's one of my wallets. It's a hardware wallet. I have another hardware wallet that tries to ride the waves, okay, where I am also slightly levered on Bitcoin. So whenever I believe Bitcoin is going to rise, based on backtests, based on moving averages, then I will put some leverage on the Bitcoin, 1.3x. Whenever I'm below the moving average, I will go out by 30% in cash, so I will have a leverage of 0.7x. So I'm riding the waves with that second wallet. And with the third wallet, I do the short-term trading thing, right? I try to find the market edge, the alpha, the information edge. I try to research the market more than the average market participant. And from that research, from that knowledge, you can generate alpha. Those trades are way shorter. They're maybe just a few days in duration on average. And then I exit once my thesis has materialized. So hope you will not make that mistake, right? Hope you will not turn what used to be a short-term trade into a long-term hold. Hope you very strictly follow your initial plan for investments. That's super, super important. If you will not do this, you will learn the lesson the hard way. Hopefully you don't have to. Hopefully you learn from the mistakes of others. I made those mistakes, and that's why I make videos like this. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe and give this a like, please, as well, because that will help the channel grow. See you later. Maybe see you also in the Telegram group. There's a link down below. Cheers.